Hello everyone, I'm Jay, and in today's video we'll be talking about CSS Animations. Let's get started. This traffic light that you see right here, powered entirely by CSS Animation. No JavaScript here. And let's have a look at some code. We'll start with the HTML. Super simple. Right, we have a container class wrapped around 3 other divs, one that's labeled red, yellow, and green, all with class names. So super simple, right? For completeness, let's take a look at the JavaScript. No JavaScript in here whatsoever. And let's move on to the CSS. We have some maintenance here at the top, just some box sizing, some body element stuff for the background color, and some general stuff in there. Some stuff on the container to kind of make it look like a traffic light. That's not super important to animations. Another setting here to make all these circles a circle and give them a default background color of dark gray. And then the keyframe stuff, the animation stuff, is down below. Let's have a look at how each of the circles animation is defined first. First, I've given each one a starting background color, and this is a redefinition because I did tell them what their background color was up here anyway, give them all default. But for completeness, I put it here again anyway so that we can see it. And then the animation stuff. Right. First, I give it the animation name. For the red element, I'm calling that red light. You get to name your own animations. That's an important thing to take away. Animations are named whatever you name them. Right? Try to name them something that makes sense. Next is the animation duration. This is how long the animation is going to take from start to finish. 13s or 13 seconds. That's what I've set mine at. You can set it to be whatever length is appropriate for your animation. And then next I have the animation iteration count, which is how many times the animation is going to happen. Right? Once it finishes that animation, it can happen more than once. In my case, I'm using the keyword infinite, so it's just going to continue to do that animation over and over and over again for as long as the user has the screen open, which could be infinite long if they left the screen open for infinity. I don't think anyone ever will, but infinite is the keyword, or you can pick some number, any number. I think 0 counts as well. You can set it to 0 if you would like, and then maybe change it some other way, either through a hover or a JavaScript or something. So first one, animation name is called red light. All of them have the same duration and the same iteration count because I do want all 3 of my animations to happen in sync. I do want a separate animation for each element as well. And then I just give them all the same time, and then they will happen in sync with each other. Right? They are going to trigger, in my case, they're going to trigger automatically as soon as the page loads, because I'm not doing any kind of JavaScript or any kind of hover effects as well. You could put the animation name and put all these settings into a hover command. Set the iteration count to whatever you like in the animation, then will only happen when the user hovers. But this is a traffic light, so I don't want to do that. Traffic lights are automatic. They don't work only when you're looking at them. So the next one is yellow light. Everything is the same except for the animation name. Right? And green light, again, everything is the same except for the animation name. Now the actual animation definition itself, use the @ symbol, @ keyframes, and then that name that I've chosen. Remember, you get to pick your own name for your animations. And then in my curly braces and inside of here, I have a series of time percentages. So of that duration, and these, this is a really nice thing, is the times are listed as percentages, and you can list whatever percentages make your animation work, right? You don't have to just do 0 and 50 and like I've done. You can do any percentages that you want. You can use fractional percentages or decimal percentages. And then your browser will automatically do the math and figure out what 10% of 13 seconds is if it has to do that, right? It's going to do that for you, which is really nice. So you can get these things in sync with each other and get them aligned percentage-wise, and then set your duration to whatever it has to be so that your animation looks like it's supposed to. I've set mine to 13 seconds to kind of illustrate that it doesn't matter what it is. It can be a weird number if that's what it works out to be. Traffic lights don't actually operate on a 13-second rotating schedule, but I want to be able to see it happen over and over again, so I set it to a short enough time that we could do that. So in my percentages here, you tend to want to start at 0% and somehow work your way up to 100% of that time duration. So starting with 0.0 seconds and working up to, in my case, 13.0 seconds. That is my time frame. And you can pick whatever percentage you want in between there, but you tend to want to start at 0 and work your way up to 100. So I have, starting at 0%, I want the background color of the red light object, the red light element, to be red, right? Because when I stroll up to or drive up to a traffic light, they're always red. So I want it to start off red right at the beginning of the page load. And then it's going to be red for 50% of the time. So it starts at red up to 50%. It's still red. This is important that it's still red here. And then at 51% of the time, that's when I change my background color to this dark gray color. And the reason I did it this way is in animations, if you have a numerical value that you change, let's say I said it's going to be red at 0% and that's going to be gray at 50% or 51%, it will actually gradually transition from point A to point B. So in my case, it actually gradually transitions from red to gray, but only inside that 1% frame from 50 to 51. And 1% of 13 seconds is very fast, so we don't actually see it happening. We don't notice it happening anyway, but it does happen in that 1% of the time. It gradually changes, which is actually, I think, in my case, just good enough so that it's not like an instant turn on and it's kind of jarring. It just kind of softens it, that transition just enough. But you do want to take note of that percentage and how long of the difference is, because if you set a change in here that is any sort of numerical change, numerical value, so background colors, colors of any kind, XY positions, width and height, those type of things are all numerical values. And so if you change the numerical values and there's a gap in there, your browser will figure out the difference and it will actually create an animation and have it move. So you can actually have objects move across the screen from like 0% time to 50% time. You can have them move from point A to point B, and your browser will figure out the math to do that. You can actually tell it to move and, like a zigzag pattern with your percentages. You can do all that. I'm doing a simple traffic light just to illustrate the process, but you can get as complex or creative as you would like. So this is the red light. Starts off at red, goes to dark gray when I turn it off, so to speak. The yellow light starts off in the dark gray, right? Because when the red light's on, the yellow light's not on. That's how traffic lights work. And then the yellow light is going to turn on all the way at the end of the time, because the yellow light turns on in real life. It turns on before the red light. And so if the animation is continuing the cycle over and over and over again, what's before the red light? Yellow. And what's before 0%? All the 100% on the previous animation cycle. So at the end of the animation cycle, my yellow light is going to be on, and then when the yellow light turns off after 100%, the red light will turn on because it's going to begin the next animation cycle. So something that you do have to keep in mind is quite often when you're doing, especially with multiple elements, your animation cycle, you will have to write it in such a way that you transition from one cycle to the next cycle, and sometimes you have to go from past 100% and then start over again, starting at 0% in the next cycle. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. So the yellow light starts off, goes from 0% to 90% of being off, and then it's only on for 9 or 10% of the time, from 91% to 100%. And again, I use this 1% gap from 90 to 91, where it will slowly transition for 1% of the time from dark gray to yellow. And then on the last color, the green color, green is going to be on before yellow, but after red. And so when the red light stops being red, it's now green. And when the yellow light comes on, the green light comes off. So green light is in between. So from while the red light is on, from 0 to 50, the green light is off, dark gray. And then the green light comes on at 51, and it has to turn off just in time for the yellow light to turn on. So it turns off at 90, or 91, sorry, and stays off for all the way past 100, stays off at 100, still stays off at 0%, and that off cycle for the green does wrap around from cycle to cycle. It goes past the 100 and into the 0%. Right? Something to keep in mind when you are transitioning, because like I said, the browser is going to automatically transition pretty much any numerical value that you can transition. Things that it won't transition are if you have display none and display block. That's a toggle switch kind of value. There's no transition between display none and display block. So that's not going to transition through an animation. But color values, the RGB hex code, they are going to transition, but they are not necessarily going to transition in the way you might think. So if you start an animation with, let's say, the background color red, and you make it go to color purple, it is not going to do the whole rainbow and go from red to purple. It's actually going to transition directly from red to purple and skip everything else. It actually will transition back around in the other direction. Or if you say from red to green, it's not going to go red, orange, yellow, green. It's not going to follow rainbow order. It's going to go immediately, shortest mathematical route possible from red to green, give you basically just a 2-color gradient from one to the next. So if you want to do a rainbow, and I have one, because I wanted to do a rainbow at one time, so I have a little class object rainbow, and then I have my keyframe animation here, and I did different percentages for the different colors. Right? So the first 10% about is red, and then I just use the key names red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, indigo, violet, and then back to red again at the end. The reason I had to go back to red again at the end is because if you put violet at the very end, up at 100%, and then you do red again in the 0%, there's actually not a transition from the end of one animation iteration to the beginning of another animation iteration. There is no transition after 100 leading into 0. So you have to code that transition in yourself if your animation requires it. Mine does. When I do this rainbow, right, I have to transition that violet back to red again myself at the end. So I transition these all at 15% or so. I think red gets a little extra time, maybe not. But I transition all these colors in here. So if you wanted to do a rainbow, you do have to do each color individually, because as you will see, they do change mathematically specifically from the first color to the second color, and it will skip anything in between. And so that's CSS Animations. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching.